it just kind of dawned on me that we're talking about addiction. I got my Elvis shirt on.
Solid choice.
That wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elvis. Welcome, everybody, to Lionz Den, episode 5. We're all happy to be here. We support all the support we've been getting. We're thankful for all the support we've been getting. Again, my name's Eddy.
And this is Daryl. Thank you, everybody.
I'm Brad.
Hey, everybody, it's Alex.
We have a special guest today. We're welcoming Bill into the den.
Hi, everybody.
Big admirer of his. As we kind of get into this conversation a little bit more, you get a better idea why we brought him in and probably be seeing him again in the future. A couple of comments, both actually on Facebook and in person. People kind of asked about having different opinions. And, you know, because we're all boys, we kind of have some similar views on stuff. So some different opinions. Bill will probably be that one.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
So he'll definitely come in from a different angle. But today we're going to be talking about addiction. I definitely have some past with father who was alcoholic. I know Daryl.
I do too. Yes. Yes. Alcoholic father. And just kind of witnessing his addiction from my perspective as a child, and, you know, kind of second party to it.
And what I thought would be a little unique is Bill definitely dealt with it on his own. So be kind of a unique perspective to be able to get from what it looks like from the child and what it looks like from the parent, and then kind of his own story. So if you kind of want to chime in, Bill, tell a little bit about yourself and what your path was through that.
Well, I grew up in a kind of real dysfunctional family. I didn't know it at the time. I mean, it was kind of like my family, you know. My uncle was a drunk, and he's the kind of guy that would come over every week. He'd be drunk. He'd be outside yelling. Open the door. He needed money to go out and get drunk, get some alcohol. And then the next day, my cousin and I, who we were like 8, 10 years old, we'd have to go find his car because he would lose it. My father was around when I was about 3 years old. My mother and father divorced. It might even been before that. I can't really remember. They don't tell me much about it. They kind of hid a lot of that. He was a person that was in prison for a lot of years, and he got out of prison, and he was walking down the street one day in Chicago, and my uncle ran into him. And my uncle was in prison, so they met in prison. That's just how the family is, you know. And my uncle said, "Why don't you come live with me, and I'll give you a room." And he went over to the house, gave him a room, and he met my mother. And the next thing you know, I was born. So I don't think I was planned, but I was born, and I was born into that environment. And it was just, it's just a weird, crazy life. You know, a lot of people drinking. My mother had some mental illness. She was schizophrenic. My father wasn't around. He only was around on the weekends. It seemed like I didn't know what was going on, man. I had no idea what was going on. Kind of in the early days, it was more like I had to protect my mother. I mean, my mother was sick. I had to make sure she took her pills. She would hear voices. She would hear people speaking through the ceiling, and she'd go, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And I go, "No, Ma, I didn't hear that. But have you taken your medicine lately?" So as probably an 8 or 10-year-old kid, I had to become an adult. So I felt like I was an adult at an early age, and that's just how it went. Was always embarrassed by her. I mean, I did a lot of sports when I was younger, and I said, "Please don't come to my games." I made excuses. Just don't come. I felt embarrassed if she would be there. And then for some reason, as I got going to school and all that kind of stuff, I started feeling kind of like, man, I don't really fit in. I don't belong. And, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel like this? How come I don't feel like the other guys? I'd look in the mirror and I'd look at myself and I didn't like myself. And, there's a lot of abuse, when I was a kid. And some of it, it wasn't really cool. I didn't know it at the time. But, there was sexual abuse when I was a kid, from my mother. And I kind of like... I still have that buried deep in my head. Like, did something really happen, or am I dreaming it? You know what I mean? I know I was walking to school one day and I said to myself, did something happen last night? And I won't get into it, but I'm like, somewhere as a kid, you learn how to take stuff, and your mind's powerful, and it'll take things and put it in the back of your head, and they'll be buried in there forever.
Sure.
Yeah,
But-
compartmentalizing.
Yeah. But they do come out later on in life, okay? They will come back. And as I was going through my life as a kid, I was the last kid in the neighborhood to do drugs and alcohol. Now, I'm going to be 64, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And cocaine was readily available. Alcohol was, that's all we did. We partied, watched movies, and hung out at the park and smoked pot and lifted the trunk on the car, listened to music. And then, I got introduced to alcohol later on in life. I really didn't like it, but I did drink. But I did notice that when I drank to get stoned. I never drank to enjoy it. I wanted to get wasted. And when I got wasted, everybody thought Bill was cool. And that was really like the first time I felt like I got some recognition from the guys in the neighborhood, because they said, wow, Bill, do you know what you did last night? You were at the bar. You wanted to fight. You wanted to do all this stuff. And, me raising myself for all those years, I thought that was cool. And, it just went on and on and on, 16, 17, 16 years old, I smoked pot for the first time. I was in high school with the guys at the park. They always would pass it to me at parties, and I would pass it on because I was afraid of my father. I was afraid my father would kill me, So I kept passing it. And one day it's like, man, I want to hang out with these guys. Or I played baseball with them. They never invited me to parties, And I said, I'm going to do it. So I started smoking pot, and we're in class and we're laughing. It was like magic, In a way I can put it like this. If you have a headache and you take an aspirin, it gets rid of the headache. When you have a lot of fear and anxiety and you don't fit in, for me, when I drank alcohol or did cocaine, I was 6 feet tall. I was good looking. I wasn't afraid of nothing. And that's what it did for me. So does that say I have an addictive personality? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So
Now about how far in, was there ever at any point in time you're starting to notice you might have a problem? Like when you start noticing it affecting life?
it didn't affect me until I was 20. I was probably 1980. I was working for a place called, it used to be Nicky Chevrolet, and it turned into Keystone Chevrolet, and I was an apprentice mechanic. And it was 1980, and there was a recession. And the guys at work said, we don't want to lose you. We want to keep you. So will you mind writing service? I said, okay, I'll write service. So I'm writing service. And just to tell you how drugs find the addict, right? So I'm standing in the tower, and this guy, salesman, walks up to me and says, look what I got. And I go, what's that? He's the big bag of Coke in his hand. Look what I got. I said, where'd you get that? He goes, don't worry about it. I said, well, give me some. He goes, no, don't worry about it. And he walked away. I was a service writer, and I was in the tower. I walked up in the tower, and I found this bag of cocaine laying on the floor, and I knew whose it was, and I grabbed it, and I shoved it in my pocket. And I remember him coming an hour later looking all over for it, this guy, a sales guy, I can't remember his name. And he goes, hey, man, did you see that bag? I can't find that bag. I go, man, are you stupid? How could you lose that bag? Are you something wrong with you? And he goes, no, I can't find it. You got it? I go, I don't have it, man. What are you talking about? Well, I had it. It was in my pocket.
Right.
And so the cocaine for me was really my drug of choice. I drank alcohol to get drunk, but cocaine really kicked my butt. It got me in sober earlier. Typical of most people that are addicts, when you're alcoholic, you're like 50, 55, 60, and you finally wake up. You've ruined people's lives for 50 years. Cocaine will take you down quick if you have an addiction to it. It beats you to death. So I found a bag, and I started using it. And then a couple days later, I'm out in my car and I'm doing it. And then this mechanic walks up to me and he says, hey, man, can I have some of that? I go, come on in. He goes, no, let me take it home with me. I go, well, I gave him a little. I figured I trusted the guy. I gave him a little. And then the following day he goes, hey, can you get me any more of that? I go, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, I like to get a couple ounces of that. I go, a couple ounces? I don't deal drugs. He goes, well, can you get it? Well, I know where I could go get it.
Right.
So I called a friend of mine, and my friend said, do you know this guy? I said, well, I've been working on him for 6 months. I don't know. He seems all right. I have no idea. He goes, well, let's meet by Berry School. Berry School was the school that I went to in the city. And we met over there, and then all of a sudden, boom, the police are all around me. Guns drawn, dragging me out of the car, throwing me in the dirt. And that was the scariest time of my life. I figured, man, it was a Class X felony. It was 6 to 30 years going into jail with doing cocaine. So I started to think, man, how do I stop doing this stuff? You know? Right. So I went to jail. My dad said, why don't you take up boxing? Boxing? He says, yeah, you're an athlete. Why don't you do it? He goes, make a man out of you. Because my father was, like I said earlier, my father was in prison. He grew up in the 40s. James Cagney, all them guys was his hero. Stories about my dad. He was a stick-up artist. You know, he knocked over places, knew syndicate people. He boxed professionally. You know, he was the guy I was really afraid of as a kid. I mean, really afraid of him. And
so let me take a wild guess. Your dad's from Chicago, huh?
My dad
sounds like a Chicago.
My dad actually lived in Cabrini.
I just guessed that. I didn't know.
So my mother was born in Steubenville, Ohio. Grew up in Chicago. My dad grew up in Chicago. He lived in Cabrini Green. So could see my father had no money. My mother had no money. So I got arrested. My father met me at jail, and he told me, don't tell these guys anything. He knew exactly what to tell me, how to act, what to do. And I got out. It cost me, you know, after everything done, I had to do 6 months weekends in Cook County. So I went to these gyms, and I started to box. Now, again, I'm a paranoid guy. When I was cocaine, and even as a kid, I never felt like I fit in anywhere, you know. I had all the talent in the world, but I got to tell you, I never felt like I was any good at it. I was a 200 average bowler. Every time I go to bowling, I figure I'd screw up. You know, I'm going to miss this or I'm going to miss that. It was, I believe, you know, I know what it is now, but back then I had no idea why I felt that way. And I think I'll just kind of keep it like that. At that point, I had no idea what was wrong with me. I always wanted to have I said, I wonder what it was like to have a mother and father at a table together, have dinner, see what that was like. I always wish I didn't have my mother, you know, she was gone. So in jail, he told me what to do. I got out. I started going to Hamlin Park. I did some boxing at Hamlin Park. And then he got me over to Sheridan Park in Taylor Street. And I started working out with this guy, Primo Lacasa. He's a professional trainer. He had Luki Capuano was one of his guys. And I started to box. And, you know, all of a sudden they're telling me, Bill, you got a lot of talent, man. Holy cow. How long have you been fighting? I never had a fight. I didn't even fight on the street hardly. He goes, man, you're going to really be good at this. I had no idea what they were talking about. I was just trying to get over being afraid. You know, I would sit in my car and a guy'd pull up next to me and I think the guy was looking at me. That's paranoia from drugs, right? So, so I worked out. I ended up having 7 fights. I won 6. I lost 1 fight to somebody who had 89 fights, and I had 7. I lost a decision. And in every one of them fights, I was paranoid. And I knocked guys down. I didn't even feel like I hit them. I don't know even how to explain any of that. So, you know, the boxing didn't really do anything for me. I met my first wife. I tried to get sober. I went to meetings, you know, the group of people that have the same kind of issues that I have. I'd go 6 days. Man, I get high again. And I'd cheat on her. I mean, I had all these. Now, I have addictions to things that aren't even invented yet, believe me.
So just for 1 second, I just want to pause for a second because you gave, like here at the Lionz Den, we don't tiptoe into the water. We obviously dive right in head first. And you kind of did that. And, but I do want you to kind of let people know some stuff about you, where you are right now, because you're giving a lot of good information and kind of how you went through your journey. But like, I know you as a friend, and how many years are you sober right now?
33. It's incredible.
You know, so coming off of what you just told us, I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Yeah.
Because you know, you're going right into the meat and potatoes of your path through addiction. And there's some heavy stuff to start off with, you know. So I did just want to stop for a moment and point out that you are 33 years sober, you know, and but not really to interrupt, just to get that point across too.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, it's, you know, doing this talk tonight, I kept thinking every time I do this, you know, if somebody hears it and it gives them a little bit of hope, I mean, that's really what it's all about for me. You know, it's, you know, where you can come from. I mean, you know, whatever. So, I mean, anyway, I tried to get sober. I couldn't get sober. Go to a meeting, last 6 days, get high again. You know, go to a meeting, get high. Then finally, I went in a hospital. First time I ever went into a treatment center. And
now, like when you went to the hospital, did something happen, or was that just something you just chose to do?
No, that's that was a hard. I did not want to. I wanted to get sober, but I wanted to do it myself. I had this deep desire that if my father could quit smoking cigarettes, I mean, it goes back to childhood. If he could quit drinking coffee, if he could quit drinking beer, And my mother used to say, you look just like your father, you act just like your father. Why can't you do it? So I said, well, there again, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it?
Meaning quitting cold turkey. You should just be able to do
quit.
it.
I should just quit.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to quit so bad. And I started back up again after being arrested, knowing that I could go to jail again, right? It doesn't matter. And I was living in an apartment. I was going to get married. And I'm living in this apartment. I had some woman in this apartment. My wife lived like four blocks away by her mom and dad's house. It was her grandmother's apartment that I was renting in. And when that girl left, I just said, I was like, I got on my hands and knees and I prayed to some God that I had no idea if there was even one. And I said, I can't take this anymore. I got to stop this. I cannot take it. I remember getting on the floor saying that. And I told her the next day, I said, I need to go into a hospital, man. And I went in the hospital. It was a 30-day program. And it was actually kind of I needed to be off the street for 30 days. And that's just for me, you know. So I got the 30 days off. And I got out of there and I started doing the things that they tell you in the treatment center, where you need to go, how often you need to do things. And I started doing it. And I did that. And I ended up maybe 3 years sober. But through that 3 years, I never felt any good. I felt terrible. And I always worried as a kid. And I was worrying even when I was sober. I would get this is funny, I'm gonna indulge you this. If I'd get a spot on my shoulder or under my armpit, I would go, do I got HIV? And I would worry about having HIV for...
So you're like a hypochondriac.
It's OCD. It was OCD. I didn't know it at the time. I've had it since I was a kid. I didn't know it. And that was part of the reason I probably did alcohol and drugs, is to try to stop that, because I would obsess about everything. If I got a pimple on my nose, man, I didn't want to go out of the house. And, so there's so much tied into addiction for me that I didn't have any idea what it is. I mean, just think about a human being that's 27 years old and lost. And I have no idea about anything. I feel uncomfortable. I didn't have the nerve to kill myself. I wanted to stay alive. And, but I had no clue what was wrong with me. I couldn't figure it out, So I had 3 years. I'm married. I got a couple kids now. I'm working as a mechanic at Gateway Chevrolet. I come home. I go to these places. Meanwhile, at these places, I have this addictive personality. I don't feel good about myself. I never appreciated what I had at home or any of that kind of stuff. I was always kind of self-centered. And one girl, another girl, go out with this one, take this one for a ride, do that. And I ended up going on a bowling trip. And I went to Cincinnati and I went on this bowling tournament. And I'm in my room and the guys are downstairs in the bar and I'm sober for, I think, about 3 years. And I hear the music and I can hear it all. And I'm sitting in the room and, alcoholism's kind of a sneaky disease. It's go downstairs, have a Coke, man, see what's going on. And I was young, I was in shape. I don't look as old as I do right now. And I went down into the bar, and the next thing I know, some girl walked up to me and put her hand on my rear end, and we started talking. And next thing I know, I got a drink in my hand. I mean, it was that fast. I didn't even think about. I have a wife
Coming
at home.
out of being sober.
I have a wife at home. I got 2 kids at home. It was like, bam! I had to have that drink to feel comfortable around her.
So at that point, you had been sober for 3 years.
I was dry. I look back at it as not. I was sober as a state of mind, a calmness.
Gotcha.
I wasn't sober, but I wasn't drinking, and that was important. But then, I went to Cincinnati, Ohio, and I bowled, and that happened. And I drank, and then I went home, and I'm in the kitchen at my house. And I'm like, did I really drink? I mean, it was like almost like I dreamt that I did it. It was weird. And I didn't tell my wife, obviously I got to keep secrets, And once I went and bought a motorcycle, and I know we're all funny. We all work in the motorcycle business now. And I was 30 years old, and on my 30th birthday, I went and got my first motorcycle. And why, I have no idea. I didn't ask permission to get it. I just went out and bought one. And I bought it with a friend of mine, and we started riding it around, and we went to a bar to see an old friend that I grew up with, and there was 2 girls in the bar, and I got 2 kids at home, and I got a wife at home, and I went into this bar, and these girls go, "Can you take us for a ride?" Okay, took them for a ride. Next thing you know, we're at my buddy's house, and the girl says, "Hey, wait a minute, I got this." She opens her purse up, and she's got a gram of cocaine in her purse. I mean, to be an addict, it finds you, man. The stuff will find you. Even if you say you don't want it, you'll find it. And next thing you know, I was back getting high again. And this time, it didn't take a long time to go back in the hospital. It kicked my rear end quick. And I'm gonna embarrass myself, and I'm gonna tell you guys what my last August 3rd, 1988, what that day was like. So I'm high doing drugs, and I'm driving my car, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm thinking I'm being followed because I'm paranoid.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm driving more, and I see the car behind me. I start taking cocaine, and I'm throwing it out the window. And I go to Addison and Central, and I get out of the car, and I close the door, and I'm in the middle of the street, and I'm going, all right, guys, come and arrest me. There's nobody there, man. There's nobody there.
People just trying to go
I'm
to work.
standing in the street. Come and arrest me.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. I get in my car. I call my wife. I said, get the kids out of the house. I'm being followed. Go by your mom's with the kids. She's going, what? I said, get the kids out of the house. I'm being followed. She goes, you're nuts. I said, get the kids out. So I drive home, and I come into the house, and we had some construction work on the back of the house, and I laid on the front room floor, and I was seeing shadows. That's how wasted I was, how it was affecting me. And it looked like people were getting ready to break the door down.
Yeah.
And that next day, she looked at me, and she's been through this once. Now she's going to be through this again, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't know anything in my behavior because I never told her anything, So I ended up going back in the hospital. And I went into a hospital downtown Chicago. And I started to do this, same thing again, going to meetings that I needed to go to and meet new people. And, but something was wrong, man. I just did not feel right. My wife started going to church. I had nothing to want to do with church. I had nothing I wanted to do with people who were religious. I was yelling at her. I was telling her, is Jimmy Swaggart at that church? I mean, what kind of church are you going to, And she got mad, and she asked for a divorce. And I didn't want to divorce her. I mean, that's the one that got away.
Yeah.
Okay? That was the one that got away.
So when you were going through all of this, you were going through all this pretty much alone, though, because you weren't really keeping her privy of your struggles until you really hit those rock bottoms where you need to go to the hospital those 2 times.
The problem is when you don't know the problem for me is when you don't know what's going on, and somebody next to you is not really familiar with addiction and stuff. Mm-hmm. She used to think I worried too much. That was her words. You worried way too much.
Well, that was my question. Were you intentionally at home? Were you husband, father Bill, and then were you wild man Bill when you were away from your family?
I was wild man Bill. There was really
there was no separation.
Father. I wasn't a father. I mean, I wasn't anything at the house. I mean,
but did they see you in the same states as much as you?
I don't think the kids never really saw me. My kids were 2 and 4 when I divorced. They really never saw me high except the one time I came home that one night. Mm-hmm. They didn't see that, and they've never seen it. So
okay.
They don't know what I was like. I mean, I've been very honest with them. They know everything about me, but I had no idea what.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if you had two different two different lifestyles at home, straight and narrow, and then hair on fire as soon as you're not around the wife and kids. I've always been the same paranoid, nervous, not fitting in kind of guy. No matter how old I was, and no matter what I did to my life to make myself better, I never could get that feeling of being comfortable. I was about to say, I think that's more of a feeling, But yeah, well, in your case, I know what it is now. I didn't know what it was then. So right. I went, and as it progressed, going. She divorced me. I would go. I had a girlfriend all the time. I would go meet girls in the program. I'd go out with them all the time. I wasn't doing any drugs, and then I finally. I don't know. It went on for a long time. I was probably 40 years old in my 40s and I got sober when I was 30. So say 14 years not drinking and doing drugs. Finally, I had I always had, like I told you earlier, I had obsessive thoughts. Mm-hmm. So I went to a therapist one, I talked to the guy. I said, what is all this? He says, well, you had a lot of trauma in your life. You grew up in a very crazy family. You probably were. Definitely, I was overtly sexualized. Covertly, probably. I think I was, but it's like I said, that shit's buried.
that stuff's buried.
You can swear.
Yeah,
And,
it's
I
okay.
can swear on it. Because I'll swear all the time if you give me permission. So,
Not the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah, it's okay.
so he says you use that as a way to deflect feeling any of that. You just get into obsessions. And I sat there and I started thinking about all the things in my life. When did I start obsessing? So that's when I started to realize how much it was important to have some insight on myself. Until then, I couldn't figure any of that out. I had no idea that was the path out of this thing. And, or God or, spirituality. I would lip it at the meetings and I would say it, but, I was more agnostic at the time. I mean, you got to prove this to me first. Okay. So they go, just fake it, man. Say the Lord's Prayer at the meeting and then fake it. And I go, all right, I'll fake it, but I don't know. I'm not feeling any better, man. I keep doing this prayer and praying and all this stuff and I'm not feeling any better. And then at the age of 40, I don't know how I figured out. I found out I had obsessive compulsive disorder. Not the kind where I would wash my hands or I would turn the light switch 10 times on and off. It was the type of stuff that I would obsess about. And I'm going to give you a silly thing to see how it was. So I'm working at the car dealership. Magic Johnson goes on television and he says he has HIV. You guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I took 10 HIV tests. Did not believe that I didn't have it because of my behavior. There's no way. I got to have it. I'm bad. I'm a terrible person. I got to have it. The guy says, will you stop coming here? Stop taking it? To me, that was normal for me. I had no idea. So I got it, man.
Obsessive compulsive and hypochondriac.
Yeah.
You know what I used to do? Yeah, but Bill, it keeps coming back negative. What's the matter with you? I go, so that was the way I thought, but I would never let you know that. I would never let him know that. I had to portray a certain type of person. So I faked my identity for years. Nobody knew that.
It's got to be exhausting.
It was, I wanted to be free of it. I didn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
I had to try to act like my father and all that kind of stuff. So at 40 years old, I found I had OCD. And I went to see this lady, and she gave me some things to say to myself when I started to think like that, cognitive behavior therapy, and put me on some medication. First time I took medication. And it was like magic. The medication saved my life. It took 90% of that away. Still would come in the beginning, it would still come, I'd still have thoughts about stuff, but I mean, really, it really gave me a sense of relief.
Did you have any hesitation when they prescribed it? Like, I'm not going to take it, or were you just like, hey, let's try it?
Well, there's part of an addictive personality. You have that one guy over here telling you don't do it, and then you have the one over here, Bill, you got to do something, I started listening to this person more. I can't tell you why. I mean, I know why now, but I didn't listen to him. I would mostly listen to this guy here. Yeah. And then finally it was kind of like, I don't mind, give it to me. Yeah. And I took it. And I started feeling better. I got married again. I met this girl, Diane, and I knew her for 30 years. I knew her actually when I was going through divorce with my wife. And then, it didn't work out then. Then I met her years later. And then we finally ended up getting married. And so my life was better. I mean, I had a nice house in Bloomingdale. I held my own business. Everything was going pretty good. Bam. Gambling addiction. It's like one addiction after the other. Making a lot of money. Her mother, myself, Diane, we all wanted to go to the boat. And we lived in Bloomingdale. All we did was go Lake Street right to the Victoria. We're at the Victoria, and we spent thousands of dollars at the boat. Another addiction popped up again. And ended up having to move, sell my house, ended up moving to my house where I lived before where I'm at now was my dad's building. And boom, my daughter develops an alcohol problem, smashes her car, out with the wrong guys. I catch her in the bedroom with a guy one day in the apartment. Diane can't take it anymore. She says, it's either you or me. And here I am, a guy that always wanted to live the right life, and I got a daughter now that's got a problem, and I want to help her, and I can't get no support. So she leaves. So I try to help my daughter.
Now, with that, did you feel sense of responsibility, like your fault?
I felt guilty about my kids my whole life, even to this day.
Yeah.
I felt like I should have been there with them. I mean, it's only because I'm I'm on a different plane now. I mean, I'm not even nowhere near that person. I share this stuff just so people could get an understanding. It probably sound crazy to people, but it's a reality. And today, I'm not even nowhere near that. So the feelings, I feel stuff. I'm a feeling guy, man. I'm not a badass or anything like that. I feel shit.
Yeah, you touch me too much sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't like it.
And I kiss you once in a while too.
Yeah,
but
never again.
The kids were like everything to me. I'm thinking, man, why wasn't I there? And the first time religion or spirituality, however you want to look at it, is my sense that I'm getting baptized. And I said, okay. He said, do you want to go? I go, all right, I'll go. All right, I went into this church and I sat there, and my first wife, Jenny, sat down next to me. Now, Jenny and I, the main reason I got away from her, which was the addiction, telling me she's too religious, she's preaching Bible stuff to me, I don't want to hear all this shit. And I sat down next to her, and I'm sitting in this church, and I'm looking at her, and my son's up on stage, and I'm looking at her, and I started crying so bad in the church that I said, Jenny, I got to go, man. I got to go. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And I went out to my car, and I'm bawling like a baby, and I'm like going, I'm crying because if I would have been able to sit with her 20 years ago, I'd still be with her.
Right.
I had such a bad feeling about people that were involved in religion and church and all that stuff. And again, at that point, I wasn't really into church or anything.
Right.
But it wasn't a big deal to go to church and sit there, man. I thought it was like horrible to go there before. And that affected me. I mean, that was the first time that I realized that, oh my God. Then you go through, if I could have been with my kids, I never played ball catch with my son. I never took him to school. And, you go through all of that. Whether that's male menopause or whatever that is, I have a lot of guilt, okay?
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to, because like I said, what I admire about you is you found a way to do it. I mean, you've been to AA. For me, father being alcoholic, I was at Al-Anon all the time. I've been to plenty of AA meetings. Not a lot of people that figure it out. I mean, you know that better than anybody. There's a lot of people that stay on that path, die on that path, never make it out.
Yeah, more people don't make it than do make it. That's for sure.
So, I mean, I admire that so much about you. And I remember, there was about 6-7 months where my dad supposedly stopped drinking and was sober. And at that point, he'd gotten pretty bad for a good 10, 15 years, and he just had so much regret. He lost his wife. He's not in touch with his son. At that point, he probably hadn't worked in probably about 10 years. And I think all of that spun him out so bad that, he went right back to the bottle. And that's kind of what I was asking for you, for that regret for you. How did you kind of pull through that and kind of work over that?
Well, the miracle was I didn't drink over it.
That's exactly. So what do you think what did you kind of focus on to not fall back in those patterns? Like, how did you deal with those regrets?
Well, I figured, I got 20 some years sober. There must be a reason why I'm not drinking. I could make it up to my kids now, I love both my kids. They're incredible. They both have their own issues. My son has issues. My daughter has issues, because most of it's genetic from family, a family history of certain things. I truly believe that a lot of addiction is definitely genetic. I'm not one that had my life together and went and picked up a drink at a party one day and became alcoholic. I believe alcohol and drugs saved my life for a while because it made me feel better for a short period of time, but it did make me feel better. So it really worked. But as far as now, what is my life like now? It's taken a long time to get where my life is right now. Right now, I've never been at the kind of peace that I have right now. I've never had it. I don't recognize it, but I have it. I don't, I've been challenged where I work to do something different. I had that fear in the beginning, like I'm going to mess this up, or I don't want to screw this up. I don't want somebody to feel bad about me. But for some reason, as time goes by, every day goes by, I start to feel like, I think I could do this, man. I'm okay. And, I've been single now or by myself now for about 14 years, which probably was a blessing, because when you really spend time with yourself, you really spend time with yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I got to thank Daryl. when I got divorced from Diane, I would eat a food addiction, another one, right? That I'm just an addictive guy. I blew up to 272 pounds, and I never been heavy in my life. And I don't know what happened. I pray, I read, I'm looking into who Jesus Christ is. And trust me, for me to say that gives me chills, okay? Because it's not something that I would ever talk about. And I'm kind of private about my spirituality. I grew up in a different time than most of you guys. And we didn't talk about politics. You went and voted, and that was the end of it. The religion, we didn't talk about it. And I always believed like being an example instead of going out on a corner and reading the Bible out loud and stuff like that. I don't really need to do that. It's just somebody, for me, God has put people in my life, about alcoholism. Somebody will walk up to me and say, hey, I heard you don't drink for a long time. How'd you do it? And the person's got a problem. It's kind of weird how that happens, but you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So today I'm on this mellow path. I feel pretty good. I lost a lot of weight recently. I like what I do. I don't make the money that I think I should make, but I read something the other day and it was talking about follow Jesus, which I don't know yet what that means, and not money. You know what I mean? And I thought about that. And my way I look at a lot of things, we always have things where people were worried that we're not doing well and we need to do this, we need to do that. My mindset on that is, Eddy says it's different than most of you guys, but my mindset is God's going to take care of this, man. I'm not worried about it. It's going to be okay. We might have a bad day, bad month, but man, we're going to flip it. It's going to flip. It always flips. There's no doubt about that. It always flips, So today, I'm happy, man. I rode my motorcycle with Daryl here today. I felt great riding it. And I haven't felt this free in a long time. I don't have paranoia issues. I do get angry a lot, though. I noticed I'm able to handle that. Sometimes I'm in a situation where I can see the old guy wanting to lash out. And, but something tells me like, man, it ain't worth it. You want to be calm, right? And I go, yeah, I do want to be calm. I'm talking to myself. How do you want to live your life? I just want to be at peace. That's all. I'm 64. Maybe I got 22 years left. And I'd say that jokingly because my mother and father both passed away at 86, And I don't want these last years of my life. I don't want any stress. I really don't. Even if somebody else is stressed out, I can help them. I'm finding that I can be calm and help those people instead of getting stressed with them. Because before, when I would get together with somebody and they had a lot of issues and stuff, man, it would pull my ass down to their level. You put one bad apple in a group, everybody gets sucked into it. And then today, I seem to find some way not to be able to do that. And I'm lucky. I don't know why I haven't drank it. I kind of know why. I had in my heart my whole life I didn't want to be a bust out or an alcoholic or drug addict. I never wanted it, and I never told myself everybody else was the problem. There was something wrong. I knew it, but I didn't know where it came from. As far as right now about my mother and father, they're both gone. They both passed away. Actually, to be honest with you, my life is better now that they passed. Because I don't have to deal with my mother and my father. But during this, this solitude time that I've had, and I'm going to share this with you guys so you guys understand. My mother was, like I said, she had schizophrenia and she was very voyeuristic and that kind of stuff as a mother, right? Swore at me, would drink, have seizures on the floor, roll around on the floor. I'd have to get a spoon and put it in her mouth. And I'm like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old trying to help her out. And I hated her guts. I remember one time I was at the house and she said something to me and I picked up this big cabinet and I threw it at her and I jumped on the chair and I had my hands around her throat. That's how bad it was. And when she died, I went to visit my aunt in California, who's a spitting image of my mother. And I had found out. Now, my mother was born in 1922, okay? I found out that my mother's father molested her when she was a little kid, and she caught syphilis from him. So here's a woman born in 1922, let's say she's 14 years old, 15 years old, that happened. 1937, where are you going to go living in Ohio at that time? Who's gonna help that woman? So you never really know where somebody comes from or why they are the way they are.
100%.
That changed my life. I forgave her. I'm sorry she had to go through that, that kind of stuff. But at the time when I lived with her, I had no idea any of that. Nothing.
And it's the reason you found that out, when you found it out. Maybe you needed that, to get to where you are.
It's because I want to live a life of peace. I want to live.
You
a
needed to know
spiritual
that,
life.
yeah.
I believe there's more to this life than just being here. And for some reason, something told me I need to forgive her. Can't move on unless I forgive her.
So for this episode, we definitely want to introduce Bill, have him go through kind of some of his experiences, share that with people. We talked last episode a lot about depression, anxiety, suicide. Addiction's a big part of that too. I mean, with everything that's been going on with COVID and everything that's been, it's not like it's a new thing, but we see a real lot of all this going on a lot more recently. And like I said, I've definitely met other people that have made it through. Bill's probably the closest I've gotten with somebody, and Bill's been interesting to me because I don't know, how long have we known each other? About 3-4 years now?
Almost 4 years, yeah.
4 years, just seeing even how much he's changed through that period of time. I always find that intriguing that, as he said, you're how old now, Bill?
I'll be 64 next month.
64, always looking to grow, always looking to learn, always looking to change. So, I find that so impressive because for me, and I know it's the same for Daryl, our dads never made it on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So it's good to see somebody that does that. And we'll definitely explore that a lot more in the next podcast. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for sharing. It's an awesome story, especially of how you came out the other side of it. You should be very proud of yourself. The things that you recognize, the things that you're able to reflect on, the things you're able to come to peace with in order to make a change. He's proof. You're walking proof that there's a way out. And I think there's a lot of people listening that need to hear that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Brett?
I think your story is unique because it almost seems like early on you knew there was something wasn't right, and alcohol, drugs kind of found their way in. Is you trying to find that peace and try and make that inner part of you right. And I think it's unique that through this course of your life, you were able to figure it out. You were able to kick, kick alcohol, kick drugs. I know how hard that is. I actually recently stopped drinking. It was just something that wasn't fulfilling to me anymore. I don't miss it. I don't really have an issue with it. It's, but I could understand how, when you need that and taking it away and trying to find that inner, combination, I guess is the right word, to make everything right. I think it's great that you were able to do that. And I think it's also great that now your goal really is just to find peace and maintain this peace, because I think that's what we're really trying to do here. And I think all of us want that. You want that happiness, and I think it's really amazing what you've done. Your story is really unique, and thank you for sharing it.
Daryl?
Yeah, same thing. I'm really good friends with Bill. I do want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your story, especially right now, because like Eddy said, it's I think over the past few years, people have had to come to a period where they had to understand themselves a little bit more, because everybody everywhere had a lot more time with themselves than we expected to have. So you kept saying in your story that you never really felt that you fit in. And earlier, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I think that was just a feeling, because I've been around you. I see you interact with people. Now, granted, I see Bill now, so I'm looking at a different Bill from the Bill you were talking about. But you naturally fit in with scenarios, but that feeling that was internal, is what made you kind of go through what you went through. And I'm happy you shared that, because I think that it'll be listeners and people watching the video that appear normal to everybody else, but might not feel that way. And it's good to hear that from somebody else, especially who has a story like yours that went so deep down on one path and then made it through on the other end. So kudos to you. Thank you for sharing.
And we'll definitely have Bill on the next episode. And again, having experienced it, going through it with the father, seeing a father go through that, like you really, I can't even put into words how impressive it is to be able to come through that. I mean, there's people who come back from, addiction and, half of what they were before it started. I mean, what impresses me with Bill is not only did he make it through it, still always looking to grow, still finds a way to smile every day, still finds a way to, make the best of things. And I think that's probably what impresses me the most about it. We have very different political opinions. We joke about it all the time, but it's always in good heart, good gesture. And I mean, there's times that we've had conversations where, a couple days later, I thought about that. And, I could kind of see that. And just seeing that with him through all he's been through, I think is so impressive. And we'll definitely talk about that a lot more in the next podcast. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please tune in on the next one. Also, please share any comments that you have. Bill is single, ladies, so you can put any comments on there. We can hook that up. But thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next Lionz Den.